Bonjour à toutes et à tous, je suis très honorée de pouvoir participer au Colloque International Arcanes, bien qu'en ligne. Je parlerai en anglais, je suis vraiment désolée, mais je n'ai pas parlé français depuis longtemps, puis il est un peu rouillé. Avant de commencer, je voudrais remercier le professeur Jean-Marc Larrue, le professeur Fabien Richert et tous les organisateurs et les organisatrices de ces magnifiques colloques. Je vais commencer, I switch to English. I will approach the topic of today's conference from a slightly off-center perspective. We could also say inverted perspective. I won't deal, in fact, with contemporary strategies of deception, but I will take a long step back, focusing on a curious form of counter-deception, which was widespread between the 16th and 17th centuries. As the title of my presentation suggests, Anatomy as Art of this Deception, I will investigate from a historical intermediate perspective a still little explored function of cadaveric dissection, a medical procedure that in the early modern age proved one of the most effective tools for masking deception. According to early moderns, in fact, anatomy not only provided useful information about anatomical features and conditions of health and disease, but it could also reveal moral and spiritual characteristics. In fact, delving layer by layer beneath the surface, dissection was able to reveal and cure both the physical and spiritual impostures of human nature. This is particularly true, especially during the century, which most exalted the behavioral practices of simulation dissimulation, during which this act of inner penetration could be understood as an opposition to the dominant tendency of the mask, a symbol of hypocrisy against the truth. I will analyze this moralized conception of anatomy through the comparison between two Italian works written in the late 17th century. The first one is the Anatomia degli Ipocriti, written by Alessandro Tommaso Arcudi under the pseudonym of Candido Malasorte Ussaro and published in 1699. And then there is the Anatomical Illustrated Atlas, L'uomo e sue parti figurato, simbolico, anatomico, and so on, published in 1684 by the Lateran canon Ottavio Scarlattini. These works have recently been included in a digital collection titled the Biblioteca Anatomica, Anatomical Library, published by a research group on the website of Museo Galileo in Florence. The library collects the Italian area representatives of a literary genre, that of literary anatomies, which assumes the anatomical method as a paradigm of knowledge and interpretation of reality. In their literary anatomies, in fact, both Arcudi and Scarlattini metaphorically interpret the death of the anatomical excavation as a cure against the superficiality of the mask. Before comparing these two case studies, I would like to deepen the reasons why the anatomy could establish itself as art of this deception. Actually, since its origins, medicine has always posed a close connection with authenticity and truth, starting from the moral and professional virtues usually attributed to physicians, the correctness, reliability, or the integrity, all inspiring trust in the patient. Massimo Rinaldi, for example, has noted that in early modern literature and iconography, the physician appears usually represented with a dog at its side, an animal which symbolizes trust. We can see an example in Adrianus Junius Emblemata. The idea of the physician as a guarantor of truth is not new, but it has an established tradition in Hippocratic and Galenic medical writings. For example, in the Optima Corporis Nostra Costituzione, Galen ascribes to the physician the duty of distinguishing real disease from simulated ones. The problem of disease simulation is also addressed by the early modern physician Paolo Zacchia, who in 1666 publishes a useful medical guide to light recognition of false symptoms and masking deceivers. Zacchia includes in the category of the simulation of illness also those who pretend to be afflicted with disease to be worshipped as saints. Relevant is the case of a woman who pretended to be wrapped in ecstasies. Zacchia writes, "She stood with her arms stretched out in the form of a cross, her eyelids motionless, her eyes fixed. During the whole time of the ecstasy, she stretched her body in an extraordinary way as she was about to fly into the sky and wanted to rise into the air. But the fact that most amazed me was this woman's ability to change the color of her face and the stroke of her eye. Indeed, she first blushed and then, more and more paling, she languished without consciousness." As you can see, the simulation of holiness is expressed through a somatic language, through symptoms such as pallor, blushing, convulsions, faints. The bond between medicine and truth is strengthened especially in relation to a medical procedure like the anatomy, which Louis Vandel has defined as science du découvert, dévoilement, démontage, démystification, déconstruction du moi apparent, du moi social de la persona. Anatomy had undergone considerable and practical theoretical development since the publishing of Vesalius De Humani Corporis Fabrica in 1543. Vesalius, in fact, considered the body as a repository of knowledge from whom the anatomy could extract the marks of truth, to use an expression of Martin Kemp. Through the direct observation of the body, it was possible to ascertain the actual cause of death, but also to identify symptoms of moral corruption. David Harley, for instance, reports that during some autopsies performed in England in the early 17th century, anatomists had revealed traces of poison, and they interpreted these traces of poison as signs of a character bent on treachery. But anatomy not only allowed to grasp sin, but also holiness. Dissection, in fact, also played a central role in 16th and 17th centuries canonization trials, in which autopsies were performed on saint corpses to trace supernatural signs of divine enlightenment and grace. An example can be found in the panegyric of the friar preacher Raffaele Maria Filamondo, L'Anatomia del Cuore, published in 1688. He reports the autopsy of Filippo Neri, whose large heart and frequent palpitations are attributed to an exorbitant outpouring of the Holy Spirit. But let's come back to our case studies. The first work that I would like to discuss with you is the Anatomia degli Ipocriti, published in Venice in 1699 by the Salentine father Alessandro Tommaso Arcudi. In his moral treatise, Arcudi addresses a particular form of simulation, also known by early moderns as hypocrisy. This term, which has a long biblical tradition, refers to a precise category of religious simulator, the false devotees and saints. Arcudi, in fact, considered hypocrisy as a moral illness, as a pestilential fever or deadly poison, which only the pharmacy of the anatomy can eradicate. He writes, in fact, in the introduction, all the anatomy penetrates every bone and scrutinizes every fiber. As the title suggests, the entire treatise rests, in fact, on an anatomical metaphor, in which the author plays the role of an anatomist. He sets up a dissection hall and prepares himself to a symbolic anatomy of the charged body, from which he wants to remove the sick limb of hypocrisy. As declared in the preface, significant entitled Preparamento di Ferri, Preparation of Surgical Instrument, he takes inspiration from those anatomists who sharpen their knives to split the death for the benefit of the living. Arcudi thus proceeds with a moral and theological resignification of the anatomy, whose principle and mechanism can be analyzed in opposition with the strategies of the art of lying. The simulator, in fact, acts underground, covering himself with veils and masks, while the anatomist deals with the inner truth. He opens the body external case to offer a clear vision of the interior. According to Arcudi, the anatomist is like a sculptor who, per via di levare, by taking away, removes layer by layer all the artifices. On the contrary, the hypocrite imitates the painter and, by way of putting, per via di porre, adds veil to the truth. The surgical excavation is thus seen as an ablative operation capable of ripping the veil of deception both from the body and from the soul. In the 18th chapter is Anatomia degli Ipocriti, each devoted to a part of the human body and in turn divided into cuts. Arcudi focuses on different features of the hypocrite, starting from his appearance. In the first chapter, devoted to face, the author describes the real aspect of the hypocrisy, resorting to a whole series of zoological metaphors, symbolically associated with darkness, evil, fraud, and impurity. The hypocrite is associated with reptiles as the chameleon for its ability to change and adapt to any situation, or to poisonous species such as the scorpion, the viper, the snake, but it also compared to the fox for its cunning, or to the insatiable wolf. But the closest animal to the hypocrite is the monkey, which imitates man just like the hypocrite tries to resemble saints. The monkey is not only the symbol of fraud and deception, but is also the animal which Galen used as substitute of man for his dissections. We can say that all the Prevesalian anatomy was based on a lie, because we studied the body through the body of the animals. The fairy nature of the hypocrite is well described and depicted in Cesare Rita's iconology. where the Hypocrisia appears a skinny and pale woman with legs and feet similar to those of a wolf. She holds with her left hand a long crown and a prayer book, an officiolo, while with the right hand in public a coin to a poor. As you can see, the hypocrisy is represented as a woman dressed in religious vestment. This figure, this kind of representation, reflects an outdated but still relevant tradition which considered the phenomenon of simulated holiness predominantly female. For Arcudi, in fact, the women behave like hypocrites, enacting continuous metamorphoses and illusions and flaunting their false virtues with outward signs. With Megant, for example, the women disguise their true appearances, as well as the hypocrites pretend the pallor of abstinence and penitence with powders and mixture. Alongside women, Arcudi also addresses a category of devotion simulators that he calls modern masters of Christian doctrine. Behind this epithet, we could trace a veiled reference, but not so veiled, to the Jesuits, often accused in the early modern age of consorting with women and misleading them, of hiding ambition, thirst for power, money, and social recognition under a cloak of apparent holiness. The Anatomia degli Ipocriti echoes, in fact, the religious disputes between Dominican, Theatines, and Jesuits, which animated the entire Counter-Reformation age. Medieval religious orders, such as Dominican, in fact, view with suspicion the doctrines expressed by the Society of Jesus and carry out a smear campaign against them. One of the cornerstones of the deconstruction of European anti-Jesuitism was the stereotype of the Jesuit as a hypocrite. In the Renaissance, the Jesuits were in fact accused of having promoted a new trend of holiness. In fact, Arcudi writes, some masters of the spirit have appeared in the Church of God who have invented a new trend of holiness. And this holiness is no longer based on martyrdom, but on outward practices and supernatural signs, such as stigmata, vision, or mystical crisis. Arcudi also especially opposes the Ignatian doctrine of the cases of conscience, according to which the state of soul should no longer be considered from a polarized perspective of good and evil, but each case evaluated individually. In fact, modern religion approached souls in the same way as modern medicine approached bodies, by processing anamnesis for the individual person. Arcudi instead can't accept these, can't mitigate contradiction, can't accept these view of reality. All his work is in fact based on a Manichaean, on a dichotomous vision of reality in which transparency and masquerade, light and darkness oppose. The first image appearing in the text is in fact that of light, symbolically associated with the author's pseudonym, Candido Malasorte Ussaro, which means, which refers to candor. Malasorte is unlucky. Ussaro was the ancient name for meaning the soldier. This is the anagram of his name, an epitome of clarity and sincerity. The author, in fact, presents himself as a model of candor against the opacity of his enemy, who live in darkness like the Jesuits in their black cloaks. This Manichaean view of reality permeates also Ottavio Scarrattini's anatomical treatise. Here, the issue of simulation, hypocrisy, and duplicity especially arises from the dense iconographic apparatus which accompanied the first volume of the work. It consists of 42 illustrations, including emblems, imprese, and hieroglyphics realized by the Bolognese engraver and illustrator Domenico Maria Bonaveri. Each emblem represents a different body part, which is first anatomically described and then associated with moral and spiritual meanings. Scarrattini, in fact, conceives the body as a topography of the good and the evil, where each limb is assumed as a symbol of vices and virtues. According to such a moralized view of the body, the debate between masquerade and transparency can be polarized in two organic sides, the mouth and the heart. The former is identified as the locus of deception and fraud, while the heart is the organ which always speaks the truth. Scarlattini, in fact, described the heart as the most perfect of simulacra, located at the center of the little sun of the microcosm. The position of the heart, enveloped by the pericardium and hidden within the thoracic cavity, is particularly significant because it lends itself to a range of metaphorical instrumentalization. Torquato Accetto, for example, justified the behavior of the simulator as a form of adaptation of human actions to the heart's natural condition. There is also a beautiful example, this dichotomy between the heart and the mouth, in relation to hypocrisy, in Université de Montréal Emblematum Christianorum Centuria, published in 1584. Here, the debate between true and false appears polarized, especially in this emblem, Frustrame Colunt, where there is the allegory of the hypocrisy, which is represented as a woman who keeps in her right hand the tongue, while she grabs behind her the heart, and also the text which accompanies the emblem is particularly significant. In fact, it's written La langue mène le cœur loin derrière, et d'hypocrisie et la droite peinture, elle séduit par sa douce manière, rit mordant la simple créature. And then I won't read it all, but the concealment of the heart is associated to the covert acting and deception. The most efficient way to reveal man's real intentions and restore the truth is the extraction of the heart from its natural seat. To the heart abîmé, Scarlatini thus opposes the image of a little window open on the chest, an incredible invention which became the symbol, the anatomical excavation. The display of the heart becomes, in fact, in this period, the most tangible expression of sincerity. Virtue, that is Ripa's iconology, appears as a beautiful girl clutching a dove in her right hand and a heart in her left. There is also another image that I included in the slide, which is the allegory of Sinceritas, and it is an image included in the Warburg Institute photographic collection. Here there is a man who is indicating his heart behind a cage. He has a dove on his arm, and under his feet there are some masks, a symbol of hypocrisy. Scarlatini includes in his corpus a significant variant of this homo fenestrato, this window of heart. He retrieves this an emblem of this variant emblem from the famous repertoire of hieroglyphs by Piero Valeriano. It represents a man with a heart hanging around the neck and as motto into esse et extra idem, which means inside and outside the same. In fact, it symbolizes the correspondence between actions and words, appearance and feelings. Scarlatini attributes, but in general all the early moderns attribute both to God and the anatomist the prerogative of peering inside the human body. In fact, in Francesco Pona's Cardiomorphosios, the example you can see on your left, there is an emblem which represents the divus amor, the divine love, as a physician holding the scalpel and dissecting the heart. While the heart is seen as the origin of all virtues, such as truth, courage, fortitude, judgment, faith, etc., the mouth, on the contrary, has a bifid nature. The mouth is, in fact, an instrument which can easily turn to good, as in the preacher's hand, who uses it to transmit the divine word, or to evil, as in the case of the hypocrite who hides evil under the tongue. Arcudis recognizes the mouth as the organ in which deception is produced and associated with a series of diseases such as the murmuring, lying, worm pumping, and flattery. But the immoral use of the mouth also determines physical decay, especially affecting the tongue's organic consistency. We can see it in an emblem included in Scarlatini's corpus, revocare ad malleum, which means to restore to the hammer, which represents a tongue placed on an anvil. And Scarlatini describes this tongue as the tongue of lie, which is soft, lubricious, and fugitive. And to restore its hardness, it's necessary to beat it with a hammer. The metaphor, the anvil and hammer, is reversed when it comes to the heart. We can see another example, including in Daniel's Kramer Emblemata. It represents the pure heart, which should be soft, flexible, and to make it so, it must be beaten with a hammer, which is metaphorically identified with the word of God. Alongside the two images of the mouth and the heart, Scarlatini also introduces that of the eyes, which he considers as interpreters of the heart. The eye takes prominence in Scarlatini works as a symbol of the relevance of vision and anatomical investigation, and imagery on anatomy as introspection and self-knowledge. The eye can positively influence the use of other body parts, such as the mouth and the heart. We can see an example in the emblem Eloquentia Verax, where the two organs, tongue and the eye, are represented together to imply that truthful speaking moves from the visual perception of things. Other cases, including other early modern repertoires, are the emblems of the ocular heart, with 6 eyes in the heart, and of the ocular end, which are symbols of the action and...
I'm sorry, the time is running low, so
yeah.
we could wrap up, you know.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, conclude. Baudelaire quindi has characteristics to conclude, conceive the anatomy as a detector, as an inner eye, capable of overcoming the opacity of the body and exposing moral disease and turpitudes of the soul. In the Baroque age, in fact, the transparency of the body was considered as the cipher of the moral integrity. In fact, a symbol recurring in 17th century anatomical treatise is the mirror, an object which links to the idea of anatomy as ars servandi. I would like to conclude with a very, very brief reference to the present-day fortune of this model, on which I will focus my future researches. Indeed, although the moralized conception of anatomy is outdated today and transitive medicine has often been replaced by deep skepticism, dissection seems to be a model, a still valid model of investigation. In fact, it seems that it still has something to teach us. For example, the importance of direct observation or the discernment, or the logic of fragmentation and analysis. This model has also evolved during the centuries. For example, the power of inner penetration of the anatomy has been transferred to other medical procedures, such as X-rays and psychoanalysis. Medical imaging, in fact, offers today the possibility of looking through the body as through the glass, but with an even deeper vision, the vision of the artificial eye, and without the need for cuts, while psychoanalysis has been recognized as a technique of self-knowledge which unmasks deception, self-deception, and illusions. Je vous remercie beaucoup.